TIFU by warning a nurse that she might feel a little woozy. This actually happened 3 days ago, but today is my day off, so I have time to write this. I am a doctor in a hospital. One of the procedures we do is called a bone marrow biopsy. It is a procedure where we go inside the bone, where the factory of all blood cells is, and get a sample. It's done in the room at the bedside. No need for an operating room or anything. We usually use a special needle to get into the hip bone from behind as the patient is lying flat on their face. It sounds scary, but it's a fairly minor procedure. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. Today I had to do this for one of my patients. Usually I require some assistance. Someone to hand me things when I am sterile and to take things from me. Anyone can do it. Usually I have an eager medical student and I explain what I am doing as I go so he can learn. Today, I didn't. So I asked for help from one of the nurses and they gave me one of the travelers who are there to help. While I am prepping the field and getting ready, I said how thankful I was for her to come and help. I had never seen her before, and I know the floor nurses fairly well at this point. That's when she told me she is a traveler. I asked if she is a heme/onc nurse and she said no. I asked if she ever saw a bone marrow biopsy and she also said no. I then asked if she had had lunch and she said no. So I decided it was a good idea to warn her. I said something like, just as a heads up. A lot of people seeing this for the first time get woozy, so if you start feeling it, let me know. And it's true. I have had a few nurses, med students, aides get woozy. Something about the needle pushing through the bone that gets to people. There is a scratching noise that you can audibly hear as the needle rubs against the surface of bone. People feel it in their core. It's also a very forceful procedure. Bones are hard and I have to apply a great deal of force to make my way in there. And also the fact that when we pull out the marrow, we are technically pulling fluid out of a vacuum, and that can sometimes be painful to the patient and some viewers to behold. Boy oh boy, did she not like that. She rolled her eyes and huffed and puffed at me and said, "Don't you worry about that, honey," with the full weight of the condescension that honey can carry. I have been a nurse for 15 years. Don't remember the exact number, but definitely more than 10. I have been a trauma and nurse for most of it. I have seen metal spikes and machetes pulled out of all sort of holes on patients' bodies. I think I will be all right. She was intentionally rude and antagonistic. I stopped for a second and looked at her, trying to decide how to respond. But after a split second I decided it wasn't worth it. I am not a confrontational person normally, and I have been around long enough to know that it's not worth it to engage. So I just said, okay. I genuinely didn't really care. I just wanted to finish my procedure in peace and move on to my next patient during my very busy day. Well, what do you know? Minutes into the procedure, I got my needle into the bone marrow space and I am starting to pull out the liquid marrow. This is the painful part. The patient grunted and I apologized. Not much I can do about this part. All of a sudden I hear a thud. I turned around to find said nurse on the ground out cold. I call her name. Nothing. This was obviously a problem. I had to leave my sterile field, interrupt the procedure and get help. The other nurses called a rapid response, which is an overhead page that we typically call when a patient is looking ill suddenly and we need extra hands. The nurse ended up in the emergency department. She is thankfully all right. TLDR warned my nurse that some people faint watching the procedure she was helping me with. She didn't like that and was very rude. Then she fainted watching the procedure she was helping me with. God, I hope I never need this. Today someone else fucked up. I mean, you warned her, didn't you? So you didn't do anything wrong. It was her failing to recognize where her brain draws the line of what is and isn't too much. Very important as someone in the medical field to always stay humble. No matter how long you are in the field, there can always come someone or something through the door that hits you like a ton of bricks. Thumbs up medium skin tone plus if you find yourself dizzy because of a procedure or something, just tell and leave. Before you are additional problem. Hopefully the nurse learned that now and will consider this in the next situation similar to this. This isn't a fuck up on your part. Can you guess who fucked up? This is why I'm happy my leukemia kid had sedation for any bone marrow biopsy. I've had a bone marrow biopsy, and I'm here to tell everyone who is scared of getting one that it really isn't that bad. Think of it like dental work on your bone. You can hear the scratching, but not really feel it. There is a moment or two of ouchy pain when they do the deep aspiration. Of all the procedures I've had, this was by far one of the easiest, plus you don't see any needles because you're on the tummy or your side. I didn't even take any Antivon because I didn't feel like it was necessary. Context of procedures I've had: awake wisdom teeth, cystoscopy X4, scope up urethra to bladder, yes while awake, colonoscopy X2, IUD insertion gone wrong, prolotherapy on my spine, lymph node biopsy in my abdomen guided by CT. This was the worst thing I've ever done by far. I could see the needle bouncing around with my breath. It was incredibly painful for me because I have persistent pain in my pelvis. It was brutal. But I avoided a surgical biopsy doing it this way. As a young nurse, I got kicked out of the room during a bone marrow biopsy. Apparently I turned green before going totally ashen. The best I could do was fall on the empty bed next to the patient's bed. What happened after she recovered? I hope she apologized. I've never seen a procedure like this as I am not a medical personnel type of gal. Just the description of this is making me dizzy like a scratchy sound? No can do. And I'm not a particularly queasy person. But the idea of scratching my bones with a needle intending to pierce through said bone to pull out me bone juice. Terrifying. Y'all are gods among men to handle all that shit. Bless you and all the staff around you. I'm currently in a lab tech internship, and during my heme rotation I was invited to observe a bone marrow biopsy. The heme tech has to be there to quickly prepare slides for histology. I'm sure you know all this already. And she had me tag along to help in the same way your nurse would. I was not prepared for how uncomfortable I would be watching that procedure. I didn't pass out but definitely had to force myself to take deep breaths and focus on my task to not feel lightheaded. I can imagine being closer to the action. You did warn her though. My concern here is this. I had to leave my sterile field, interrupt the procedure and get help. So not only was she rude about it, but her ignorance and cavalier attitude could have endangered patient safety. Not only should she apologize to you, she should apologize to the patient. You did nothing wrong. RTTFU. Today they fucked up. Please tell me you went to the and asked, "How are you doing, honey?" As a nurse, I loathe nurses like this. Give us all a bad name. I'm sorry she was rude to you. Please, oh please tell me you saw or spoke to her after that. I'm curious how the next interaction went. I'm not for shaming anyone, but I love it when people are so cocky and arrogant then the exact thing you were telling them or warning them about happens. I'm not a doctor, but have had this happen many times in my field. Again, not medical field, but people being super cocky and arrogant only for it to blow up in their face. I luckily get to talk to or see them again. It's probably not healthy, but I love the explanation or apology after. Instant karma. Today a nurse fucked up by getting cocky about her experience after getting a heads up. Poor thing. I'm a former nurse and I've seen a lot of stuff. Trauma. OD. Psych. Insects. Code. Name it. When the doc starts with, if you feel dizzy, step back and sit down, and you feel dizzy, you step back and sit the FK down. Your brain is just trying to tell you something is not right. Hearing the needle poking through the bone is not normal for the reptilian brain, I guess. You can't fight biology. I guess you can still learn after 15 years of seeing everything. Medical student here. Also almost fainted watching this procedure. I felt very silly and weak after it happened. I wish someone had told me I might feel woozy.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.